Hey friends. So, the last couple days, I've had a real interesting experience. Kind of coming back to my work with my daughter on violin. I noticed something a couple days ago. It's one of these times when it's a very exciting time to be working with her. We're right in I'd say we're getting into the last third or so of the Suzuki Book 1. And that's when the pieces there's kind of like a quantum leap that happens. They become substantially longer. all of a sudden you've only used one fingering pattern for the entire first 2/3 of the book, and now all of a sudden there's multiple fingering patterns. You have to remember when you use a certain finger, you have to remember where it goes. You don't always use the same finger in the same position. So there's just a big leap happening, and we learn, and Annalise is she's just an incredible young mind, and she's doing this work really, really well. And a few days ago, in learning this newest song, she kind of she basically just practiced a section, or there are little moments in this piece when I saw her making a certain kind of mistake each time, and little by little it was like that became fully programmed. Those little, either the pause before a certain note or playing a certain note twice and kind of tentatively playing it once and then playing it again, became not just something that happened once or twice during a run through, but it became the way she played it. And so it gave us, and there was a certain place in the song where she would not be able to continue. She would just stop each time. And so give us the opportunity to talk about, okay, well, what is a mental, I call these things like little mental blocks. They're like little, or mental speed bumps. I'm careful about the name, because you don't want to label something a block and thereby give it more power than it actually has. But at the same time, you kind of want to acknowledge, okay, well, this is something that is an obstacle. How do we deal with that, right? Because that is our experience in learning music. Oftentimes there'll be something, okay, this is a difficulty. There's something here. This is the edge. This is my edge. We're leaning over our edge. What do we have to do? What do we have to integrate? What do we have to learn? What do we have to do differently? And it's been really interesting working with her over the past couple of days, because I noticed that she developed some resistance to the entire practice process, and I attribute it largely to the fact that there are these new these new difficulties, and she'd created for herself a certain kind of tension around certain moments in the song. And FYI, I have to take my own kind of full responsibility for all of this too, since I am the parent who's accompanying her on this, and I'm largely responsible for how she interprets certain moments in the process and what those moments mean to her. So I have to also kind of look at, okay, well, how am I construing this for her? What am I telling her? How am I communicating with her about what's happening? And is that a helpful way, or is that actually kind of making it harder for her? That's something that I try to maintain a pretty constant awareness of. But it was really interesting to see what happened to her when she was working with little moments in a song that she kind of didn't know how to fix. And they weren't vastly more difficult than the other songs she's played, but because of the length of the song and because of the amount of complexity in the piece, there was just a certain kind of inability to step back and fix this moment, this transition, or whatever it was. And so we talked a little bit about mental blocks. We talked a little bit about the practice process, about how once we've kind of, it's almost like we've plowed a certain way of doing things into the soil. And now that it's there, it's taking root. Now we have to go, if we want to change it, we got to go back and re-plow that soil. And one of my challenges has been, I know how I do this in my own practice, but I'm an adult human who's been playing music all his life. Like, I have a whole, and even for me, it's not so easy. Even for me, I have to be vigilant. And if there's a little thing that I'm doing that's causing an error or causing some difficulty in a piece, it takes a fair amount of patience and a fair amount of like, okay, I can't be in a hurry to get a result. I've got to be willing to take a step back and look at what's really going on, look deeply at what's going on, and unravel it on whatever level of depth it's occurring. It's a process that involves a lot of kind of disciplined awareness and patience and gentleness with myself. And so watching her try to have to do that and trying to guide her through that, right? Be the one who actually points out that that's what we have to do now because we've learned it one way and that's not really how it goes. So we got to find a way to look at it and work with it, but bring that to her in such a way that it didn't completely repel her and make her want to quit, which I think is a little bit what was happening. That's been a major challenge, a major kind of like learning experience. And today, I watched her. We've sort of talked a little bit about how we kind of need to slow down and just take it easy. And I watched her, and she really didn't want to do it. She did not want to do it. When I was asking her to play, from this transitional phrase, going from, I asked her to kind of pick up from one phrase and go through the transition and get to the next part. And it was also, incidentally, the first time I've really been able to get her to play just a tiny little piece of a piece, a tiny little section of a piece over and over again. Just like practicing it. Because our pieces so far have been so short that basically you didn't have to practice it section by section. You could just play the whole thing over and over. It wasn't necessarily the most efficient way to work, but it wasn't vastly inefficient because the piece overall wasn't that long. You could kind of just do a full pass and pay attention to one or two things and kind of be okay, and that was functional. Now we're getting to where that'll never work because to play the whole piece each time would take like 4 or 5 minutes, and you'll forget the little thing you're trying to focus on in that amount of time, and even if you don't, it'll be an incredibly inefficient way of addressing it. So I got her to do that, and she kind of was like, I saw her kind of chafing, and I was just gently saying, honey, it's going to make it, you're going to be so, it's going to feel really good when you do this. And at the end of that, she was just like, yay! She had this like celebratory energy to having kind of pushed through this, having gone in and uprooted something that she was trying to fix and actually lay the track down in a new direction. I know my metaphors are all over the place. But it was really fun to see that happen and really cool to experience her experience of that. When I'm working with her, I generally have to maintain an awareness of what distance am I regarding the picture from, right? Like where am I located in this picture? Am I right up against the music and I'm trying to make sure that she learns the music? Or can I step back from the whole process and see the dynamics of her learning process overall, of her experience of the music overall? Can I reside there enough that I can kind of keep that portion of the picture on track? That's really the kind of the key and the challenge for me. Because I also have to be the one who like gives her the notes and at least at this point, she's going to outgrow that pretty quickly. But at this point, she still needs somebody to kind of walk her through. This is what this phrase sounds like. Okay, let's work it out. Do it's note by note. But I'm appreciating both this process overall and also what it really means to uproot a mental block or whatever we want to call that thing. Uproot a pattern, a habit that's not serving us, it's not helping us. what it really takes. I mean, I saw it on her face. She was like, this, I do not want to do this right now. It was like everything in her did not want to do it. And I was trying to push her through it for a while, and I realized, okay, that's really not going to work. So then once I got gentle, and I just got encouraging, and I just got loving, and I just kind of got to where it was like, okay, we're just going to try this thing. We're just going to do this one thing and see what happens, right? Make it all about a discovery. Then that resistance became still not enjoyable, but tolerable and manageable. And there's a lesson in that for me. There's a lesson in that for my work with all of my clients and other students, and there's a lesson in that for me as a father. So that's what happened this morning. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon.